Game 2 is just about upon us. Suning, fresh after their game yesterday, are now in the arena with LGD, and they've taken a Game 1 win. So not only do they have the momentum from their 2-1 victory yesterday, they're also coming hot after this Game 1 victory, and LGD find themselves struggling once again. We heard the analyst desk breaking it down, but Rusty, it seems like it happens every split. LGD, they're reinventing themselves. Is the Sleeping Dragon awakening? And now we got to start to wonder. It's still very early into the split. Does this roster have potential? Can they even make it that far?
LGD are a side that, I mentioned this at the top of the first game as well, I just think that they're set in their old ways. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is set through their support and their shot caller, who stylistically hasn't changed a lot, but the meta has changed a lot around him. So to answer your question, can they be a top team? Not this split. Okay. Absolutely not this split, but the potential's there in certain players. I often watch Jino in moments where he shouldn't be getting things and he's doing extremely well. BYL still has moments of brilliance. Like, he's a very cerebral player when he tries his absolute hardest to be exactly that, you know, when he's passionate to win. But they've lost Imp. This split, LGD has lost Imp, so they've lost a lot of their identity as a team that made them great. That's also great.
LGD used confusion. LGD is already confused.
LGD is using confusion. But Suning Gaming also embraced the chaos in this set. And that's what we can say for both teams. I think the chaos was wholeheartedly embraced. They came at it guns blazing and they were just swinging everywhere. And in the end, that is a style that Suning Gaming have actually refined. You know, they are very good at it. They're the bloodiest team in the LPL of the spring split. They've come into summer and they're doing very well for themselves once again. Xiaoal actually has the 3rd highest damage dealt in the entire LPL so far. #1 out of the top laners with 33%. It's a lot of his team's damage, and once again, massive carry performance in that first game. We are seeing some very good things from him.
And with how the 8-11 meta is giving so much flexibility to Xiaoal and the rest of the team, I feel like Suning could just pick 3 top laners in the first round of the draft and let Xiaoal pick and choose what he wants as they get later on into it. So already Suning seem to be transitioning rather well. We were looking to see how Fen would fit in with the team in some of these more high-intensity situations with Suning having lost Knight. So far the verdict seems to be good. He's playing this Aurelia in the mid lane. He's holding down the fort, but in the team fights as well. We saw him get huge ultimates with that Aurelia, and he's setting up for more fights. But like you said, we are into picks and bans for this Game 2 between Suning and LGD. We do see a bit of a swap with the Swain banned away. That means Vladimir is the first pick from Suning, and Aurelia looks to be the answer from LGD.
Yeah, so LGD have adapted with a Swain ban in particular. That's the one that you have to look at the most because it was one that was picked by Suning Gaming as a bottom lane bruiser effectively down there with the Shen. Shen's still a champion that is up and available. Camille, still a champion that is up and available after what Suning did. LGD should be picking that one right now, or it's a big risk.
Looking at Nocturne. Perhaps they could be looking at that Shen, or at least hoping for it to go through another round, as Nocturne is the answer for Amy, taking that away from Hacker despite an excellent performance on that Olaf.
I mean, there was a chance that Hacker was actually taking it from Amy in the first game, and now Amy just gets the opportunity for himself. On the opposite side here, we have to look at champions that haven't been played yet in this set that are still good champions. That is one of them. The other one is also Yasuo, that we haven't seen a lot of, can be flexed between different roles, and is very good for that reason. No Yasuo picked, no Yasuo banned in that last game. He's always going to be on the back of your mind, especially for LGD.
Yeah, we've got the Darius now locked in for Suning. That can go to Fen, Fury, Xiaoal. That can go just about anywhere, and it is so very strong. Rakan is going to follow it up for Yoon in the bottom lane, taking away PYL's safe and engaging champion on that bottom half. We did see the Alistar hover, so LGD, they're going to have to go through another round of bans, so this could be the choice. Alistar, Shen, what does LGD have to take here, and what will they give up?
Well, this is also a support at the moment. We've seen it in the ULCS. It is running rampant in solo queue. I absolutely despise the pick personally, but it is so fun to play.
It really is, and of course the bounce is so much damage, but Fiddlesticks locked in for LGD.
The surprise would be if a Heimerdinger goes with it. So the Fiddlesticks aspect has been locked in. Lots of lane control comes from it. Very good at actually staying alive because most Fiddlesticks run the Aftershock keystone, which gives them resistances just on the fear usage. But it does mean that you're tanky, so you can engage in the support position with that if you choose as well. And you just need a bit of extra damage in your lane, and it's a powerful 2v2 that's very hard to beat.
Of course, that means Shen and Alistar could still be choices. Suning that might look to ban. Wow, how did I get the words that mixed around? They could try to ban those away here, but right now it appears that Ryze is the answer. Instead, they're going to try to limit down Yuki's champion pool just a little bit, or perhaps Jinu's on the far side.
And this should also be a Camille ban for sure. They need to get rid of that one. It could be flexing of the jungle role. They're banning junglers. It could also go towards the top lane if the Darius goes to AD or mid lane, in which case they could absolutely do either of those. We don't know where anything but the Rakan is going for the side of SNG. On the LGD side, we've got their support, their jungler, and presumably their mid lane are already secured. So it's a bit more predictable, but with the Ryze ban, it does make you wonder.
We also see the Singed banned away from Jinu. So LGD, we do in fact have to wonder how they're going to round this out. They're still looking for the final 2 picks of Suning, so they have to pick this, what could be Lucian, into a lane that they are unfamiliar with. What it's going to be out of Suning. Of course, Lucian has some pretty good escapes.
That really would scare me. I don't think it should be a Lucian. If you're into a Darius, and like if they got a Darius Vladimir, you pick Lucian, they just put the Darius bottom lane. They're like, let's dance. Come down there and just apprehend him, and he is absolutely dead with the Rakan engage there on top of all of that. So they go back to the Renekton. It had a very poor game number 1. That is certain, but it can still go to different roles. It could be for top lane for Jinu. I would love to see that from them.
We'll see where that's going to be flexed towards. Perhaps Yuki could look for that in the mid lane, as we expected from that previous game, though that was against the Aurelia, and we still haven't quite figured out who's going where for Suning. As Rek'Sai, we expect to be going into the jungle, Rakan going towards that support, but still with Ornn, that's
that doesn't
bruiser,
reveal
tank,
anything,
mage.
dude.
Yeah.
That doesn't reveal a single thing. It's still a good
love me some
lock-in.
811, yeah.
Absolutely still a good champion to secure.
There it is.
It can go towards the bottom lane and lane with the Rakan if they want to put the Vladimir mid, the Darius top lane, depending on what LGD does right now, as SNG haven't revealed anything but the finished composition, which is a whole lot of bruises. A couple of them very fragile, though.
Now we're going to see what the final pick for LGD is. Aatrox once again for Jinu. Yeah, locked in here. So with that, we've got our final rosters, and Suning are going to start swapping around, and we'll see how this shakes out. You already mentioned that Darius could be going towards the mid lane. Vladimir, once again, taking a mage down into FPY's Renekton, but this time it's the Rakan on the side of Yoon, and PYL taking Fiddlesticks.
And it looks like we will have the Aatrox into the Ornn in the top lane. The last time we've seen this matchup, Ornn controlled it very well. Actually, maybe it was Xiao that played it. He did a lot of work in controlling that 1v1, keeping Jinu down, but most of that was a byproduct of Hacker being top lane all of the time. And when you look at this matchup, when you look at team versus team, Amy versus Hacker is the difference most of the time here. Big role for Amy. Even bigger now that they're 0-1 down.
And in the first game, we said that if LGD win this series, it's about them getting a better draft or a more intelligent outplay in the game, more intelligent macro plays to pull Suning apart. It's not going to be through the individual skill. Have they got the draft to do that in this game too and bring us all the way to a game 3, Russ?
I mean, it's hard to say that their draft is strictly more intelligent than that of their opponents. You can't say that they outdrafted Suning Gaming, and the reason that I feel like these drafts are just fairly even is that they've got similar styles of compositions. The Fiddlesticks has got a pretty nice engage tool, can work with the Nocturne, high damage, vision denial. Aurelia also has really good follow-up. It's a death ball type of composition out of LGD, but that's kind of playing into Suning Gaming's hand either way, right? If you death ball into a Vladimir, into an Ornn and a Rakan, it's the same thing. So it's whoever engages first or gets the better engage tends to win the team fight, and a lot of that comes down to the early snowball. So you're not looking at draft, you're not saying, man, one team beat the other. It was actually pretty smart flexing out of Suning Gaming on the blue side as well. Red side was coming into yesterday with a 75% win rate, but that's completely shifted now, closer to even with the games that we got to see yesterday.
We'll have to see how this works out as we prepare to load into the Rift here for Game 2. Suning, fresh off the train. They played in Shanghai last night, and now they're playing in Hangzhou. LGD are going up against them. Will they be able to bring us to a Game 3? Or will we see Suning close the series out 2-0?
敌军还有30秒到达战场，碾碎他们。
Oh not exactly in unison, but a lot of cries nonetheless in support of LGD. As you mentioned, still in their home arena at Hangzhou. 3 different arenas today around China. We get to move to Chengdu, I believe, next, and then Xi'an for the grand reveal afterwards, the 3rd set of the day. So all around the world, all around the globe, rather.
Yeah.
We go in China. Now, we do actually get a chance to look at the keystones. The place that we have to start first, Dom, is the bottom lane, because PYL is going to be going for the Aftershock. I believe this is the only keystone that we have seen from Fiddlesticks in competitive, and it is the predominant keystone used even in solo queue. And that does sound weird to people, right? Like, why not go towards a Comet or an Airy and poke people down with the Dark Winds, which is obnoxious? It's obnoxious already, and you don't want to die in a competitive game. Jungler pressure at level 2 could be down there. And if you're a tank, you can actually step up and engage with a bruiser. Yeah. This makes you a bruiser in the bottom lane bruiser matchup.
Double bruisers out of LGD. You already mentioned the fact that the Terrify can proc that Aftershock. And it's very easy to land the Terrify and then start channeling the ultimate right afterwards, well, I mean, if you can go for the forced engage.
It's targeted, so I'd be shocked if he missed a Terrify. And you'd have to misclick onto a minion.
You can misclick, yeah. It's not always. Is it as easy as it sounds? Darkwind already going to start landing some hits, but a good Guardian usage out of Yoon.
Yep. Soaks
just a bit of damage in the mid lane. We've got our Darius into Fen. Yuki goes for a lot, flashes in, Burst Blood, solo kill out of LGD Yuki.
Yuki very flashy, both summoners used, but a successful kill secured. Nothing to keep the Darius alive. Honestly, just expertly navigated coming out of the mid laner of LGD, and that was surprising to say the least. We get ourselves first blood at 2 minutes into the game. Very much a good start compared to the last one from LGD.
Already things looking a little better. You can see Amy is controlling that bottom side. He's taken bot side scuttle. And that looks like we did see a full clear out of Hacker, so there's not a huge onus for Amy to hang out down there unless he wants to go for the jungle clear or try to interact with that bottom lane. But Fen makes his way back into the mid lane, perhaps a bit sheepishly after that mistaken engage onto Yuki.
And he's not running the Phase Rush, Darius. He has gone towards the Conqueror. The last time we saw it was Ghost Flash with Phase Rush. Yes. The 3-pox sprint away from the Aurelia. This time around, he engages to the fight, dodges the spell by stepping forward, and is made to die for exactly that mistake as they go in bottom.
That's the CC. LGD going for the drain onto Yoon. Shield Guardian, Ignite Tick.
Oh, he's alive.
The last one is not enough. Yoon survives.
The Guardian and the Shield coming out of that Rakan clutch, but enough to make sure he stays alive. BYL was absolutely trying to find a dark window bounce between them all and find the support, but he's already gone. And so suddenly LGD with 2 winning places on the map, having a field day running around this early game.
And DY could be looking for the dive. Lots of damage on that Renekton, though he does take a turret hit.
BYO, you don't have mana.
He does have flash, though.
But he doesn't have mana. So he's not going to have a successful kill.
You are correct. He has no mana. And that means that he will be backing away. Already, like you said, things looking better for LGD in this early game. Yuki happily controlling that mid lane, even holding the minions next to his turret. In that bottom lane, FDY is even in CS with Fury. We had double support start once again out of both Fury and Yoon. It's not a huge amount of combat stats that early on. They just need to make it out of this laning phase, I think.
And Hacker also unable to make anything happen for himself in the jungle.
Yeah.
In gaming. He had a chance to go top lane if he wanted to right now, but needed to recall, buys himself the upgraded jungle item in a longsword. So he's in a good position to get a gank off currently. But at this stage, Amy also found that recall, has gone for the boots, and is going to try and find the opposing jungler. You would expect that he's about to do exactly that right now.
Yeah, Amy might have just snuck in here. He's going to be spotted now as he steps up to Hacker and they start fighting over the small raptors. Split pretty evenly, but the big one does go to Hacker.
Of course, the good thing about Nocturne trading pre-6 in a 1v1 skirmish is that your Q can start the lethal tempo charge for 1.5 seconds, and then you can start to hit them. And it works really well with Fear in particular for Nocturne, which is why it's such a good keystone to run. You can see that he started to get the proc up there, and Rek'Sai respecting that backed away.
Meanwhile, Jinnu, he's going to take a real good trade against Xiao Al. Doesn't land the knockup. Just getting lots of auto attacks to keep that Bloodwell stacked up for damage and regeneration. Even Amy hanging out over here. So Jinnu seems to be having a much better go of it in this top lane.
But Xiao Al has shopped. He hasn't recalled, but he has shopped. He's purchased himself the Glacial Shroud. So he's actually going to be a bit stronger in that 1v1. Bit of extra sustain and crowd control. For the moment, Jinnu, having not recalled at all, does leave himself susceptible to dying from a gank.
Yes.
The Rek'Sai can get up there.
He does have Amy kind of nearby at the Krugs.
Yeah, that's where, again, the junglers come into play here because he found the Rek'Sai.
Yeah.
The fact that Amy was able to find him, process of elimination, you've cleared the bottom side jungle. You know he's going to be on the top side, so you go to your own top side, you match him, and perhaps try and find him with a counter gank.
And that's what we see from the ward placement out of Hacker, spotting out Amy in the mid lane. Still level 5 out of that Nocturne, level 5 out of the Rek'Sai as well. And even double control ward on the side of that mid lane to try and keep Fen safe after that early mistake giving up first blood.
And it hasn't been too detrimental, you know, that you lose a bit of experience in mid lane for certain. He's down 10 to 11 CS, and that's pretty much just stagnated at that exact amount. He's been okay overall. Hacker's also been out jungling Amy in terms of experience gain, so he's been doing quite well for himself respectively. They're bringing 3 people mid right now. You know this is going to be a dive if the Ornhorn sounds.
Al's ready. There's the apprehend. Yuki's hit by the first one. That's brittle. Gets knocked up. Tries to deny some of the damage. Dashes in, but goes down. The hammer falls, and Fen gets the kill.
And that's the difference maker right there. Amy, no resources, can't actually contribute himself to a gank in the middle lane, and Ornn comes down. Xiaoel, by being able to shop in lane, gets the chance.
Fury looks to be the target. That's Cleanse, as he's able to get out of the Terrify from PYL. Still just skirmishing down there, as Amy was spotted, still only level 5.
Yeah, lots of fights bottom, but not a lot of kills to be seen. It's so super difficult to kill a Vladimir and a Rakan, right? So they're able to just disengage and walk away. This time the Cleanse was used. FDY still with no flash. Same thing with you. So someone is missing down in this bottom lane. Does mean level 6 junglers perhaps can find their entryway to a gank down here. But overall, the winning lane is still going to be the top side of the map for Suning Game.
8 CS advantage, and Xiaoal has that assist.
And it's not just the CS though, it's the fact that he was free to leave the lane.
Yes.
The assist does
Lane
do
control.
work, but it's more that his assist contributes to the mid laner getting a kill. That equalizes a lot of the difference that was going on in that lane. And now feeling a lot better for himself is the Darius. Hacker also able to contribute, gets the assist. They just unlock themselves across the board. They get control of the map. Amy was just hard farming the 6, and now he's finally there and he's got a chance, but you know, will that be successful? Because if it isn't, he's wasted a lot of time to try.
Yeah, we've already seen Hacker start to affect these lanes. He's still a level ahead. Yuki,
What's he doing, PYL?
And PYL might be looking for something, but PYL has been spotted by a ward that was placed by Hacker.
He's level 5, right?
Yeah.
Flash, you know what? I'm not feeling too roasty today. That one's it. But there are other ways that he could have got to that lane, like through the control ward that is in the side of the lane if he was looking.
Yeah, we're not grilling him that much this time.
Like, look at their vision in the
take a
river.
route. Yeah.
Oh well.
Everywhere except the one safe route, and they do spot Yuki as he makes his way back in. Blue buff picked up by that mid laner. Double Ninja Tabby out of Fen and Fury as those
he's coming
basic
back. Round
items are
2.
completed. Yeah, here he is. Still level 5, and he's going to the exact same route.
Ah, you cooked it.
All right. Do you want to grill him now? This is your second chance.
Nah, he's grilled himself enough already.
Grill me once, shame on you.
The spectator is actually doing all of the work for me.
Grill me twice.
He's course corrected though, after being spotted. So note that he's worked it out.
He's so close to 6. I mean, look at the minion wave. Yuki's just not taking it over, and now PYL's out of experience range. There it goes. That's all right. Gank attempt, not successful.
You hate to see it.
Yeah,
it's just a lot of time wasted.
Wards cleared out on that bottom half by Yoon and Fury.
And I will justify some of the actions. He wants to be invisible when he ticks over to 6.
Yes.
They won't expect him to be 6 and then literally surprise party fiddlesticks.
Well, when he's been missing for a good 60, 90 seconds at that point,
But
you
where is he?
assume, I don't know, maybe doing Scuttle Crab? That gives experience.
When you have-
it's on the bottom side.
But again, if you have 2 control wards through the river, you have absolute control of that area. He could just be sitting in the bush, where he's often sitting, which is just at the edge of the lane at the river. But he's run mid twice. He's looked for the opportunity twice.
I think I've seen this play before, but this time it fizzles out. That lane control from Xiaoal you mentioned is pretty heavily affecting that mid lane as Yuki is forced to sit back and catch these minions under turret instead of try to push back against the Darius.
This time around, however, there is a teleport from Jin, so he is available to contribute to the team. Walked to lane, you like to see that a lot from him, fully aware that at level 6, LGD wants to make a play of some kind. This is aggressive.
Steps up, there's the paranoia, and it's a surprise party in the bottom lane. Suning lose one as PYL uses the stopwatch to reset aggro. Fury still healing up, and now PYL.
Whoa!
Ooh, you hate to see that happen. Face first into the wall, he goes down.
All right, Fury flashed as well, keeping with the fight. PYL dies, but they still dive the turret and get you. I don't know, man. What's happening?
Oh, man. You hate to see that happen.
It's still good from LGD. Like, that was a big force from them. Amy gets a successful ultimate off. These things are positives for them. Xiao Al also used the teleport. Jinu cancelled his own teleport from the looks of it. So in the game of Chicken, it was won by LGD's top laner. But number one, PYL comes in, and then unfortunately the flash doesn't quite find the wall after a nice little stopwatch. So he just hits the wall.
Oh.
And then Fury comes in, gets the kill, and legitimately flashes to clear minions. But thankfully we cut the tape there. But we don't have to see
just
that
so
one
that
again.
Nobody has to ever see that ever again.
I was quietly hoping I was the only one that saw it.
The courtesy
I wanted to
flash.
move on. But it was too funny.
Now Suning, they've dropped a ward over the wall here. I think they're trying to set up a bait as
They saw
steps up.
though.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to indicate a lot, and they will place another ward. You can see that there. Very nice stuff here from Suning Gaming, actually skirting around vision. Even though one ward has spotted them, LGD have no idea where they are.
Yeah, Xiao Al's even heading into the mid lane to try and force this, but there's the immediate engage on the PYL. They know he has no flash. They know he has no chance. He goes down, and here's the chase onto FDY, slowed by the tides of blood, and it's just the mob squad. You thought LGD had the death ball. Well, Suning, they're starting their own snowball.
Darius even able to save the ultimate, use that another day in mid lane if he would like. Lots of pressure from Suning Gaming, and honestly, just really nice play from them. Finding an opportunity and using that. All it took was summoner spells. All it took was a mistake or a force even from LGD, and even trade. And suddenly they're able to capitalize on that even further, get better results, get better objectives. Now they get the dragon, they get the bottom lane turret, and they get 2 kills. Amy's trying his best to trade.
Yeah, you can see he's working on that Rift Herald, but so far it's single-handedly as Fen might be trying to step up. 850 health, no sign of the jungler as he's on the other side of the map. Hacker helping to clear out that bottom lane with Fury and Yoon, but looks like it's Fury who's going to get that solo gold. Actually, a bit of an assist over to Yoon there.
And we have got the most mobile Fiddlesticks that you've ever seen in your darn life. He's gone for boots of mobility. He's rushing his ability power items now. I actually expect that he'll go towards the Zonias, given that he had to use stopwatch so early. Have to continue to map PYL's items as he buys them further on into the game, but right now he is a very poor Scarecrow.
Starts flying around the
Who
map.
can't
Might
quite
be looking
work
for
out
something
where to go.
Mid lane. He's got the Crow Storm.
And it is control warded this time.
Yeah,
he's done it.
Jinu's there.
But he doesn't have flash. He can't quite... Getting entry into the middle lane as a Fiddlesticks is super flash reliant a lot of the time, or it's flank reliant. The hardest thing to do in mid lane is to get a flank off on someone, especially in a competitive game after turrets have fallen down. Support's unlocked, jungler's unlocked. It's a Rek'Sai as well above all else, so the Tremor sense there. PYL's got a hard task on his hands to get a successful flank off, so now he's just standing in defensive positions, perhaps looking for counter ganks.
I mean, I think that's why we see Suning having set so many wards on the side of that mid lane as 3 members of LGD group up in the mid lane.
They've got the Rift Herald that they could summon for Amy as well. That's the thing you'd have to look towards. If they want to do that one, FDY would also assumedly be coming towards the middle lane to make the play.
Right now, they're just setting up instead. Blue buff going to be passed over to Yuki while Fury still hangs out in that bottom lane. Suning, they don't seem to be caught out by the Fiddlesticks cheese, the surprise factor of Fiddle coming over the wall. They're taking their time clearing these wards. They're moving as a unit. They're not letting themselves get caught out, even by the Nocturne.
You know, one thing fundamentally that's always just cool to watch is how to... That was a lot of coins. How do teams deal with champions like Fiddlesticks and Evelyn?
Yes.
The other one that you always have to consider. Shaco is another example. Rek'Sai is another example for their unique gank pathing. But for Fiddles and Evelyn, it actually changes your ward placements completely. You have to change where they are for Eve because she's invisible to on the camps. For Fiddlesticks, it's deeper vision and flank vision more than anything else. So oftentimes you'll find that their vision isn't deep enough, or it's too Fiddlestick-centric, and they get nothing from it but spotting the Fiddlesticks, and they don't see the rest of the teams doing Baron, you know, the likes of that. So it has been very cerebral from Suning Gaming so far. They know exactly where he is at every moment.
Yeah, this is a bit aggressive, but Suning could still be looking for it. Flash used on cooldown by PYL to escape, but now Suning are grouped up as 4 in the mid lane.
Now PYL not having flash though, really bad for a Fiddlesticks trying to get an ultimate off. And all it takes is the Ornn ultimate. All it takes is Hacker to find him, use that P-shooter, lock him down, threaten the follow-up. They get that flash, which means a lot of their engage starts to go missing. LGD sitting in the middle, still with that Herald though.
Yeah, they're trying to set up the stun, but Yoon is able to hop to safety, and Fury is still nice and high health. That's the Rift Herald. As you said, 5 members are here. Teleport's ready for Xiao Al, and Fen is on his way. Jinu preps the wave, and it's about to crash, but this could be the tier 1 going down. A very similar play to what we saw in game 1.
Yeah, SNG Gaming just going to sacrifice it once again. They choose not to take the fight. They'll just cede the objective. Work it out, Shelly. You're having a bad day.
Really having some tough pathing, yeah.
But no teleport to be used from Xiao Al, no early rotations from Xiao Al as well. Even if they were aware of what LGD were doing, they choose not to take the fight. They choose to just call it off, continue to push your lanes, reset, get a free recall off, and then perhaps make a counterplay yourself, which is something that they've actually done quite well.
Finding that PYL in the jungle and forcing his flash, not to mention the dive on that bottom lane to follow up on the attempted dive from LGD. Despite a good start to this game 2 from LGD, they're still down about 1,800 gold. We're seeing more CS from Yuki compared to Fen, along with that Triforce completion, but Fen is still on pace. He's got his own Triforce. As we take a look at the gold, it's still pretty close to even, but Fury, he's still ahead of FDY, 1,200 gold ahead.
A lot of it is in the jungle position.
Yeah.
Hacker farmed faster. He's been much more effective with his clears also. Amy was slow to level 6, was slow to get that first gank off, and whilst he got the assist on that first gank, that was all he really found for himself. Then back to the slow clear in the jungle, where meanwhile Hacker kind of just was bottom in the middle of his pathing anyway, and was able to get that counter gank off and trade. All of this time, SNG Gaming have been placing very strong vision.
Yeah, Yoon trying to escape from Yuki, who sets up a stun, just controlling this vision around that next to spawn Cloud Dragon. Xiao Al still holding onto his teleport as Fury is trading with FDY. And still 4 members of LGD are here, and they have got so much crowd control. Everyone on the LGD roster has got a stun or CC of some sort. If they manage to find one person out of position, there is no escape.
So the problem with this point in the game for LGD is that they've tried to unlock PYL and FDY into the mid lane.
There's the paranoia.
I don't think he actually wants that.
Yeah, Spell Shield drops the Decimate. And still Yuki is thinking about looking for more, but decides to let it go and farm the waves instead.
Yeah, Amy was expecting a little bit more from Yuki. It seems like it's just a pure miscommunication for both members there. No results to be seen, just the Nocturne ultimate wasted, which gives SNG Gaming a bit of incentive to actually push up, be aggressive in their stance now, go forward. It doesn't matter if they know where the Nocturne is or not. There's no more darkness to make them paranoid.
Now they're pushing up to this tier 1. Hackers on the side. Call of the Forge God. The target's PYL. He's going to be knocked up by the rest of Suning and will die as Hacker gets another kill. Xiao Al still finishing off the turret as Suning go nearly 2 turrets deep to find the kill and force down the mid-tier 1.
The power of Ornn, once again, the long-range engage. They just prey on the squishy member of LGD and PYL. He started behind, he went boots of mobility, so he's always going to remain fragile. He goes down for exactly that. Good focus from SNG Gaming in between taking the turret, taking the objective, but to come back to the main point, this is still reactionary to the Nocturne ultimate that was used. They find their chance, they see something expended by LGD for naught, and then they prey on it.
Now the Cloud Dragon is picked up as well. Suning 2,000 gold ahead as they finally find their opportunity off of LGD's mistake, and the next dragon will be a mountain in about 6 minutes. Plus Baron has spawned, so if LGD make any more mistakes like that, it could cost them a significantly larger amount.
Fen currently holding a freeze down in the bottom lane as well, hasn't used his Q once. You can see the Jinu's trying to skirt his way through vision to get in and break this freeze, get it onto the turret. But the outer turret's still standing, so it's not that simple for Jinu.
Oh, there it is. That was actually the Massacre used by Jinu. Flash from Fen in order to escape.
It still gets the summoner spell out, so you take that as a win. Remember that it's not a teleport Darius, so Baron is not a place that SNG Gaming are looking towards at all. He's just holding the wave for extra farm. That was nice in the end from LGD's top lane. It'll work around that vision, get the summoner spell out, and also now set themselves up in a 1-3-1 with correct lane assignments moving forwards.
Here's the swap. Xiao Al still holding on to that teleport. He's finished off a Thorn Mail as well. The 4 primary damage dealers from LGD are all physical damage. PYL, the only person with AP on that roster. And here you can see the vision out of Suning. Surprisingly lacking around that Baron, as they do have scattered wards elsewhere, but now they're starting to take control on this side of the map after it spawns. If they were playing against Dan Gaming from last year, that Baron would already be gone. Luckily, it's LGD.
I have a real talk with you, though, because you mentioned it already. Just stop fighting for a second. Oh, God.
We'll save the real talk for later, Rusty, because they're turning for the fight, and that's BYL joining in, plus the Hemoplague on top of him. FDY looks to get it, as LGD are trying to turn this around, but they've lost two. Xiao Ao with the double. Yuki chasing it forward, but Xiao Ao gets the triple kill here. The Forge God himself is forging himself even more action, as they find the 3-4 members dead and now start turning onto the Baron.
Yeah, they find 4 kills straight to the Baron buff. Jinu not going to be able to contest this one whatsoever. If he does, it'll be out of pure desperation. Xiao Ao still too tanky, able to stand there and tank the Baron up. They get another team fight. Xiao Ao finds another engage alongside Yoon on that Rakan. That is a big difference between these teams in terms of draft. Suning Gaming can engage pretty much everywhere. LGD, I mean, they're gated by a Nocturne going in and a Fiddlesticks going in. And both of those are channeled, both of those are telegraphed.
The Baron is picked up by Suning off the back of that fight. Fen even finishes off the tier 1, but let's see how it started.
Poor Fiddlesticks. He'll get an ultimate off in this case. He'll find the full channel, he even gets the proc off of the aftershock at the end of the fight with the fear. He thought he might survive, but Amy's already gone, FDY is already gone. Yuki misses the ultimate on the Aurelia, has no safe space, no resets, so he will also just inevitably die. Whiffed execution to the maximum from LGD, but also Suning Gaming were the ones engaging the fight. They were the ones starting that fight. And at this point, what I was going to say before the fight happened, before the Baron was secured, I just want to get it out there.
Yeah.
They should probably just give PYL waves to farm. They should just stop giving farm to FDY. He should build a locket. The reason that I think that's the case is because they don't have any ability power in their team besides him. And when you look at the items of their top laner of Suning Gaming, no one's going to hurt him. They are all hitting them with foam weapons.
Xiao Ao is real big, and he got the triple kill in that last fight, so that's even more. But now the Baron is starting to push up. He's still sitting on that teleport. There's the paranoia. PYL goes in with the Crowstorm. They're trying to get the target, and they finally get the kill onto Hacker. But here comes the rest of the squad, and Baron's still up for 2 minutes for Suning, but they're starting to step forward. Call of the Forge God. Yuki tries to force the fight. Xiao Ao whips the call as FDY goes in. Fen will end up dropping there. Does get the chance to use his ultimate, but Fury is trying to back away. Amy gets the fear in the back, but still, we're starting to see what happens when a full tank is able to just soak up all of that damage. PYL and Yuki can't trade against him. Bloodwell gets Jinu back up, and he will die to Fury. And Xiao Ao will not be stopped. Just chasing forward and is going to end up almost single-handedly winning the fight for his team.
They take a 4v5 and Xiao Ao is just an indomitable force right now. Stands and delivers with constant damage and they just cannot get past him. 2 slip through the cracks to try and get into the backline of Suning Gaming. But Yoon and Fury, the dynamic duo, able to work nicely in tandem. They survive, they get the Aatrox, Jinu goes down, so they still win in a 4v5, even with Hacker gone.
Yuki getting a little antsy there with PYL, just going to escort Suning all the way back. 60 seconds on that Mountain Dragon and another 70 on the Baron buff remaining from Suning as they break their way all the way to the inhibitor and open up a huge portion of the map. And Xiao Ao still has teleport. At this point, I don't even think he needs to split push. I think he can just walk through LGD as a team fight, not take any damage because he's got tons of armor, and finish off the inhib.
And this is still not bad from LGD. They're so far behind that instead of saying, okay, we're just going to hide in our base, we're just going to sit back and slowly lose the game and maybe find a big ace at item spikes, they go in when they can. And then they follow one more time. And you feel like, you're watching this fight and maybe this is really good for LGD. Jinu's in, FDY is in, they're working as a team to get those kills. But then you realize at the back end of this that Xiao Ao's still pretty much full health. And that Yuna's protected Fury so expertly that he's able to get the Qs off, that he's able to get the health back, and then they do find those kills. The individuals of Suning Gaming come up clutch in that fight. That's exactly what it takes to win a 4v5.
And this is exactly what we predicted. If LGD win this, it's going to have to be off of intelligent macro play or a very intelligent draft to set themselves up for success, not through outscaling or outplaying Suning. Though they certainly did make the correct call in trying to find that first kill, it was overextending a little bit too far for the follow-up that ended up costing them. But here comes Suning as they push a wave towards that top side. Baron finally will wear off as Mountain Dragon spawns on the other half, but this could very well be a trap. Jinu doesn't have flash, but who is trapping whom? LGD.
Yeah,
they're behind the tier 2.
Jinu was almost baiting the Rakan engage. If he was only going to find one person, then maybe LGD feel confident enough. But Xiao doesn't take damage, and I don't think he'll be too concerned about this. Didn't even go towards the Warmogs as the next item in his build. Another cloth armor.
Yep.
Going towards another armor item.
The more the merrier.
And it's going to take another 20 minutes for PYL to be relevant.
348 armor. That's a lot. He's got 50 magic resist. Now, if only someone on LGD did magic damage.
That does come back to a bit of the drafting woes of LGD, naturally. Even speaking towards the engage tools that the composition has, the Nocturne second pick, the Fiddlesticks third pick, and then they still choose to go towards the Aatrox and the Renekton in the draft. Giving over an Ornn so readily when they could have picked it because they're on red side. These are things that you can look back on and be like, well, they were honestly just mistakes.
There's Call of the Forge God. Jinu eats 1, now 2 knockouts. He's actually got the Bloodwell, which will get him to respawn, but where are you going to go, bud? He gets locked down by Suning, who just simply rotate and collapse. They take the top tier 2, they take the bottom tier 2. They're just following the steps, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And LGD are stuck on Alpha trying to figure out why they can't understand this language. They're pushing up to the inhibitor now, and LGD, they're a man down, unable to respond.
Just moving too fast for them now, and they are too far behind. It's 12,000 the difference, so naturally they continue to brute force their way into the opposing base here, SNG. One inhib will be 2, and they just don't have the minion wave set up for the 3rd, but that doesn't matter, because you can go back at the Mountain Dragon, and then just get the Baron.
Yeah, 90 seconds for that Baron spawn, plenty of time to clear out the Dragon and get themselves a fresh recall. Not that the Ornn needs it at this point. 348 armor. What does he decide to go for after this? Like, when you've got this much freedom.
That this Ornn needs is to sell his Doran shield for control wards. That's about it. And then I'll be a lot happier. And like that 6th item could be whatever you want it to be. It should stay as control wards for the moment. Get rid of that Doran shield, mate.
All right, Mountain Dragon finally finished off. Let's see what, well, I mean, it would finally be finished off if they actually finish it off. And the recalls are going to start coming out. That's a Warden's Mail next. As he's looking for what could be a Randuin's. I mean, why not?
Yeah, he's already got the Frozen Heart.
Stack
so
it all up.
It's going to be a Randuin's, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no real crit from the opposing side, but it gives health and it gives armor.
Yeah.
It's always a good thing to have, and the activation being a slow. So he could have actually gone towards the Righteous Glory. He would have over-capped himself with cooldown reduction, but the Righteous Glory active also could have been super relevant. But he wanted to be more efficient than just that. He is not a simple man. He's a big boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got his Randuin's Omen on the way.
And still Suning, 13 kills to 4, 12,000 gold ahead nearly. PYL is, you're certainly right, he's fast. He's finished off his Zanyas. He's trying to sneak around the vision of Suning, but they are playing so safe around this Fiddlesticks. We talked about it earlier. Suning are not being caught out by the near cheese strategy. And they're even running a similar 4-1 split with Hacker on that top side of the map as PYL is trying to set up some vision, but Suning are relentlessly clearing it out.
Yeah, I mean, they're so far ahead now that Suning Gaming don't even play a vision battle. They just wipe the vision control, force LGD within the confines of their own base, and then go back to the Baron buff immediately. Wait for the minion waves to be set up. You can see that Jinu's busy with bottom lane. He is very occupied with the super minions. And Suning Gaming just need to set up top and mid, control those waves, and they don't have to do Baron. They're actually far enough ahead that I wouldn't blame them for just pushing top lane without it. But Baron is the final nail in the coffin that ends the game within 2 minutes of taking it.
That's Call of the Forge God. Flash is ready from PYL. He's able to sidestep, but that means a lot of the engage from LGD is missing. That's the paranoia, but already sitting here collapsed. PYL uses his Crow Storm early to try and get in, but it's just a 5-stack from Suning, just throwing their numbers at LGD, and it seems to be working out for them, though they are taking a lot of AoE. Jinu is going to get the kill on defense, and he's actually got himself a double now, and this is where we start to see some trouble as the Bloodwell is going to get enough. Finally, they get the reset, but 3 members of Suning are dead. Yuki gets the stun, but Yoon with the cleanse, sidesteps, and battle dances away. Yuki flashes, and it's looking for the outplay. Xiao Al will now turn onto Yuki, and finally PYL gets in, and he's going to start doing some damage with that AP. The shutdown goes over, and LGD win the fight and keep themselves in this game.
They actually get the team fight victory, and this is that point once again for Suning Gaming where you hit mid to late game, you've got a lead, You could just close the game out by doing Baron, but they are so afraid of the objective. They're so afraid of starting it, and they end up losing a team fight near the opponent's base. LGD, with no hesitation, go for the fight. Credit to them for that. The execution was very sound from certain members there. Yuki, in particular, working with Jinu and FDY as a trio. They get a lot off. Amy's able to throw himself in at the last second as well after denying the maximum of vision. Now Amy needs to not die to this Baron buff and should be able to secure it.
I mean, he's trying to, but he's starting to take some damage. Baron behind them at 4,000 health, 5 in. Yoon with the battle dance, he's feared. Here comes Fen and Fury, and the Baron is picked up. Smite from Amy, not even needed to be used. As they will get a kill onto Yuki on the way out. Hysterics is popped, but the GA is already down.
And this is actually still an opportunity to end if you're sitting gaming. They tried to stop the recalls, they did.
Yeah, FDY goes down over the wall. Jinu is stuck attacking the Krugs and is forced to retreat. He's got the Baron buff, but Hacker will zone him away.
I think they
like
just
you
win
said,
now.
Suning are just chasing their way onto the Nexus. 3 members, and it's up to Amy and PYL to defend while Hacker continues to stall it out.
I'm telling you, I'm noticing a trend. You make a mistake, they take the game from you. Here they go.
Paranoia and the Crowstorm. PYL's doing damage, but it's not enough. The knockup onto the Bear Nexus. Suning Gaming, they got their eyes on the prize, EU LCS style, and they're going to finish it off as they take the series against LGD 2-0.
That is a 2-0 victory in the end, and that was not the cleanest second game, however, from Suning after such a clean start. Decent mid game. Still, that late game hiccup persists. It wasn't just this set that we've seen it. It was the one before, and the one before that. Vici, BLG, or rather just Vici in this case. Still positive overall, I have to say, Dom.
Make their way over and shake hands in front of the home crowd here in Hangzhou. They played last night with a 2-1 victory. They played again the very next day in a brand new city, in a 24-hour turnaround, and they did it, and they took their win. Suning trying to rebuild themselves with the loss of Knight in the mid lane. Like we said, we saw a few hiccups with those late team fights against LGD today. We saw a few of those similar hiccups yesterday, but they're continuing to push their way through this 8-11 meta and show that they can thrive in the chaos.
And you know full well that Yoon can play that Rakan to a very high level. You know that Xiaowao is super good on those tanks, but he's also got the bruisers there, and that's the player that you really have to highlight. Those two working in tandem to get the engages off were great, but Xiaowao is a beast right now. He is slaughtering everybody in the top lane of the LPL. Looks like nothing can hold him back. In the first set that you watched, you're like, all right, Hacker's doing a lot of work to keep him going, to get him ahead. But still, Xiaowao's able to do that without the jungle presence. If they're just fighting each other, if it's just the 1v1, he still shows up, steps up to the plate, and has a stellar performance. And Suning Gaming seem to be resting a lot on the performances of their top laner. But even as a 4v4 in that second game, we saw so many positives. Playing around vision control, vision denial, and dives in the bottom lane. The difference there is it's all reactive. And that's something that needs to be considered moving forwards. They're only really reacting to things being thrown at them, but the counter is fantastic if they survive the initial throw.
We'll have to see if a player on Suning can develop a more confident voice in forcing these plays, forcing the setups for Suning, so that they can find that chaos and force themselves into success. You can see those rough spike in the late game after about 31 minutes in when LGD finally got the team fight that their composition warranted. Jinu doing massive damage, Yuki stepping up on this Aurelia, but still not able to keep up with the damage of Fury on that Vladimir.
Didn't quite get the Baron fast enough, couldn't disengage quick enough, and they end up losing the game. If they were able to get back to base and reset, maybe they hold on for another few minutes and provide themselves with one more opportunity. Yuki had a fantastic game in particular here. PYL not so much with FDY, who's just a Renekton one trick right now.
Yeah. He's been having some trouble in that bottom lane. I mean, it seems like we saw Amy and PYL try to force the issue with that level 6 dive, force the snowball that you were talking about, but trading the kills, that I feel like that was the biggest disappointment out of LGD. Every time they found a kill, it was almost always traded back 1 for 1 or 1 for 2 on the other side.
And I take this fundamentally as well. I don't blame the Renekton, I blame the pick of the Renekton, because PYL never lanes and you can't 1v2 as a Renekton into anything like that. Maybe give him something a little bit more safe, or perhaps a Karthus and just acknowledge you're going to die and clear the wave anyway.
Very well, could be a strategy for them in the future, but now it's time for our analysts to break down that Suning win.
Ultimately, it's a Suning 2-0 over LGD, and this was I mean, let's be honest. This was the expectation that everyone had going into this match. LGD have been bottom of the barrel for a very long time in the LPL. Suning are kind of our dark horse, next generation of LPL talent climbing up that ladder. But does it still sting, Raz, when you look at that type of game and that outcome, especially in the end? I feel like when we were setting up this analyst test, we're like, okay, we're going to talk about, the supports and the hard engage, and we'll run a couple of replays. And then we saw LGD grab the Baron, and then all the disaster that happened after the Baron, like Jinu's positioning being given away by his own team. Like, what is happening?
Disarray, a lot of it. I know we'll get into it soon enough, but a lot of it comes down to a lot of the same miscommunication errors coming out of LGD.
Okay, well, he said soon enough, so we're going to go back. We're going to celebrate Suning. We're going to talk about the good news first. And the good news is that you look at Suning's composition. In fact, you look at all 10 champions here. There are only 2 champions in this entire game that are ranged. This is not the right comp, is it? Yes, it is. Okay, sorry, I saw the Swain. I was very confused for a second. Vladimir and the Fiddlesticks. And then ultimately everyone else are these big melee bruiser champions. And so when you have someone like the Rakan, like the Ornn, these hard engaged champions, they really thrive in this meta.
And especially in the meta, a lot of the times we're seeing the Shen supports anyways, we're seeing the Alistar supports. So you're right, the Rakan gets a lot of value, best bang for his buck for a lot of these Groupon team fights, so he can use his ultimate. In fact, a lot of these games that we've seen so far from the LCK, from the LPL, now Europe's come up with a lot of it. I need to see some games on that. But with Rakan, you see so many team fight moments that he just is able to group up 4 or 5 people and wins it for his team. So for the Rakan pick, I think he's an excellent pick to go forward. And there's a reason why he comes out. He even enables Xayah to come back in. So for the few AD carries that are still available and viable in the meta, Xayah is still coming true just because he has Rakan by his side.
Yeah, a lot of that kill pressure there. And that was kind of really the story of this game. It felt like it was a lot of, like 4 team fights, more team fights than we're used to seeing. Fits with Suning's type of style where they are a very bloodthirsty, heavy kill-oriented team. But particularly like every single time, mid-game.
Yep.
Middle of the map, suddenly you see the Ornn Horn coming through, you see the Rakan blitzing this way, and then LGD just got blown up.
Yeah, it literally felt like the moment. And here's the thing, FDY remembers the time when he was a ranged mid laner, so he can push out the lane, see if he can get a skirmish across before he backs away. There is no backing away when you have this kind of a pick potential off your composition. So Rakan eyes it, and he finds himself the kill, and they can push forward for the next few.
The best part of that was PYL ulting in, and as soon as he landed, he was like, surprise! And then he got knocked up immediately and blown up, and he flashes out before the duration of his ult is up. He's like, joke's on me, I'm out!
The best thing about Fiddlesticks is the thought process that you have allowed for yourself during the channel time. So you're channeling, you're like, I don't know where this is going. We're about to find out if I can save the man or not. And by the end of it, you already know where the trajectory of the fight's going.
Yeah, that split second that it takes the channel for you to land, you're like, this is a terrible idea. How do I eject out of this as quickly as possible? So then we have to kind of gear it over towards LGD.
Yes.
Suning, they win. We were talking about this. You're like, either Rakan's gonna get MVP or Xiao's gonna get MVP again in a quick 2-0. But LGD, if you're the coach of LGD, if you had to fix this team, if you had to just go in, because from going from 2015, possible contenders for best team in the world, to then immediately crashing at Worlds, one of the most embarrassing performances that the LPL has ever had on an international stage, and then it just continuously sliding backwards, almost getting relegated, barely scraping in over franchising, continuing to sit last place, having your home arena, not picking up any wins. Like, what is happening here?
You lose focus on what made your team strong. Because if people looked at what LGD was in 2015, you saw a team that sure was incredibly talented in each role, but mostly in the fact that they were so aligned. That if you saw an LGD versus EDG game, what you saw was it was really hype. It was, you can see Cassidans come across because you knew there was going to be that 5-minute gambit. That was both teams showing up 5v5 mid lane very early on. So LGD as a team, what defined them for me was team play, team fighting before the game got towards the mid game, because early game meant a lot to this team. What we're seeing right now, and as that time progressed, because Acorn's not in the top lane anymore.
Complete roster overhaul, all of these new rookies like Yuki, Amy returning to the stage, Jinu coming over, now not even having Imp, so FDY.
Yeah, and so what still remained was talent, right? It's not that Jinu's not talented, it's not that...
Even Yuki got the solo kill.
Very talented, but there's no team play anymore. That's gone from that team. Yuki, you can look at that game, solo kill in the mid lane. From that point, any team will say, well, suddenly you're bringing in any, like, if you're looking top lane, Aatrox has pushed in that lane, or at least he should be able to.
Aurelia Darius too.
Yes.
Like, to get a solo kill in that matchup.
So most teams would change the strategy to then protect the Aurelia. So that Aurelia is a winning lane matchup just because of that solo kill. You can try and prop her up, look for gank opportunities, and make it so the experienced advantage, like we can talk a lot about what you can do in that situation.
Just snowball it.
But that communication isn't there. There's many games that we see from LGD where that falls through. And a good example for people who are on YouTube, where you can just roll it all back to a point where a bottom lane skirmish happens, a 1v1, Aurelia setting up for it, just a fight. But then she backs away. And then Nocturne ulties. He goes in. And it's exactly in that order where he ulties 2 seconds after Aurelia is already pieced out. And so there are multiple communication errors that come from this team that they have had a fairly stable lineup at this point, right? Even though Yuki and Nanju's been coming in, they still have PYL, their major shot caller, Jinwoo, who's been with the team for quite a while now, and Amy, who's been that jungler. And I still haven't seen PYL and Amy work together. So a lot of these questions are not getting resolved, and so the identity of LGD from 2015 is cast to the wind side.
So here's a controversial statement. We played this game yesterday with Clement on the desk. Yeah, you were even there for that. A controversial statement. To make LGD better, do you get rid of PYL? Because he's the only remaining consistent factor there. If you look at LGD's successes, PYL is the consistent factor, but if you look at all of their holistic failures, the shot caller, the captain, the veteran member, is it time that if you blow up the roster that this last piece needs to be knocked over?
And a lot of the times the easy answer to that is a yes. If someone's making the statement, they're saying, well, bad shot calling team, who's the shot caller? He's the shot caller. Change it up. That's usually a very similar point of view. And I think that it comes down to a point where you have to figure out why these decisions are made, what's happening in practice. And so my first question was, what's the coaching staff for that lineup, or at least the coaching team? They even had Acorn there, who's been on that team in their successful point in time, and there's still no movement. So what I want to see out of LGD is movement, even if it comes down to sporting Newt a lot more often. There's sub support that we saw when PYL was sick, and seeing if that changes up. That's what I want to see, because I want to see an identity out of LGD. Because even from, if we look towards TOP, before they brought in Marin, they had an identity. They didn't have talented players, but they were still a
20-minute Baron team.
They were going towards 20-minute Barons. They were a team that focused on the macro, focused on what made them good. And I don't see focus out of LGD.
And the thing is we actually have footage of LGD without PYL. Their very first game in the LPL, they played it on Tuesday against Invictus Gaming, and they did a lane swap.
Yeah.
And the thing is they actually did the lane swap fairly well. It came down to their actual coordination team fighting when things fell apart for them. But initially, I would actually say that LGD looked more competitive in their Invictus Gaming series than they did in this series without their captain and shot caller.
And it always comes down to the fact that any team will look at their games and say, well, we lost, so we need to find a more successful lineup. And so the question is, are you going to develop your team? Are you going to develop your players? Do you want to see Newt as a player in the support position that can take it home? Or do you, and like sacrifice games, because that will happen, so he can get, pretty comfortable.
You take the losses so you can grab the experience.
But thankfully, we are in a franchise league. And that you don't find yourself, because LGD has found themselves in the past in relegation tournaments. You don't have that fear anymore. I want to see LGD sport more players. Other teams have done it. They should do the same.
So then the immediate response then from the community is, when people hear this word franchising, from our perspective, working in the industry, we're like, this is great. It's going to offer more money, more stability, more security. That means more people will have their jobs, and ultimately everything would grow because it's going to lift the level up. But a lot of the community see the word franchising and be like, but then there's no reason for you to get better. And so your worst teams are only going to get worse because there's no fire underneath their ass to make them get better. How do you feel on that line? Is that what's actually happening for LGD here? Because this is not just one split, not just two splits, but seasons now repeatedly where LGD are failing to swim.
Yeah, I think that there is a fire. It's a different fire. And I think people look at it organizationally rather than just the players themselves, because players at the end of the day want to play the damn game. They want to get out in the field and they want to prove themselves. And so you see a lot of 10-man lineups in the LPL, and a lot of people, like for instance, when we saw Dan Gaming, we saw Chi, we saw Nat come in and they tried to prove themselves, and we saw good things. So for LGD specifically, I think there is definitely going to be points of growth just because we see them fielding more players and we get a chance to say, well, actually, we'll field a new player and see where this team goes because there's only an upward trajectory.
I'm actually so happy that you brought this up because I feel like this is a topic that no one ever touches on in this community. And for our Fast and our Furious viewers, there's always that joke of racing for pink slips where you race for the car, you know what I'm saying, like in the movie, that these players are effectively playing to play again. You know, when you were on a bottom tier team, and we saw this on Dan Gaming, now TOP Sports Gaming, and as well as LGD, that the organization themselves cannot get relegated, but the players still want to win. And if they sit on a bottom tier team and they continue to lose, chances are that because of all of the talent and all of the options that a region like the LPL has available, that if you don't perform, you just kind of fade back and you disappear. So even if there's no threat on the organization, it doesn't mean that there's not a fire behind the player who's sitting at his table thinking, I must perform here so that even if I don't perform on this day, that I'll have a chance someday.
It's always the young bloods that force that. So for me, that's why Yuki and Jinu, that I really do believe that they will lead LGD if we see LGD pushing forward in the future. Because remember, last split, they took victories. They took victories off of RNG, Suning, JD. They made it difficult for those three teams to find out who makes it into the playoff bracket. So there is a lot of potential there, and potential's a word that people say, well, I mean, get away from it, push away. I don't want to hear that. CLG, I know I'm tilted, no, but seriously, like, there is potential in this lineup, and a lot of them are going to be moving on to the next set, hoping to find something to make these pieces work.
And I'm glad that you bring up also the word then potential, because I immediately got triggered by it. I'm like, no, stop with the buzzwords about potential. So you say it's on Yuki. So then is it also then on New? Like, would you be fine if LGD subbed out PYL, if you truly believe that it's the fundamentals and it's the shot calling that are the core problem here, and then just took loss after loss after loss and said, okay, we're resetting for spring. You know, it's not about 2018 LGD, it's about 2019 LGD.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. Because remember, really early on in the summer split as well. So if you take 2 weeks of just trialing Newt, or just trialing a new support or shot calling system at the very least, then don't be afraid to fail. That's always been my thing on it. And LGD immediately, I know that we've showed videos of just them saying it's a completely clean slate. They always have the goal to basically get to playoffs and then keep going step by step by step. We need to worry about the first step, and the first step is just playing as a team.
The first step is actually winning a game. That said, we are in extended break again because we are playing in our away arena. So our next series will be in Chengdu over in OMG's away arena. It starts at a focus time, 5 p.m. China Standard Time for the local audience there. So we are getting ready, preparing for that, but we will go into a bit of an extended break. The same thing can be said for our Xi'an game, which I believe starts at 7 p.m. China Standard Time. Now, in the meantime, though, we do have a couple of plugs, guys, because we have a really cool new feature coming out. It's called Face to Face. Our very own Clement Chi, you've seen him on the caster desk as well as in some of our interviews. We'll be sitting down specifically with Coach Stake of Rogue Warriors, one of our Rift Rivals teams, and asking him questions. And you have the opportunity that if you go to Twitter, LPL English, I believe, is the Twitter handle, you can actually propose your question, and Clement might actually answer that for Stake and then cover it in the article.
Give him a good one, too. If I hear any questions about his shampoo, then we'll have problems.
How do you get your hair so perfect?
Doesn't even have that big of a hair anymore. But anyways, give him some good questions. Grill him. I know I'll be doing the exact same thing.
We were actually just having the discussion that Stake is such a cool player because he's moved from being a player into a coach, and now moving away from Flash Wolves over into the LPL. It's kind of like a new chapter for Stake himself. You know, the fact that he has to be that professional influence.
Yeah, and it's just a new journey for him because a team that he knew so well in Flash Rolls, and obviously going to a team where he has to bring a lot of individuals together, which is the Rogue Warriors story. So big test to him. Last split was phenomenal, even though they kind of fell off at the very end. Remember, the journey is what's important. They have a journey going to Rift Rivals.
Excellent. So we will be covering that. But that said, we're going to go ahead and toss it to an hour-long break. Again, it's for the localized start time in Chengdu. But when we come back, it will be Rogue Warriors versus OMG. See you on the other side.